Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. On my drive home today, I just wanted to talk a bit about suicide and euthanasia in shit hits the fan, and the multitude of scenarios that might present themselves might put you in a position where you have to make some pretty hard decisions. A lot of people have seen The Road by now, movie The Road. And the guy saves 2 bullets, one for him, one for his son, and of course he ends up having to shoot one guy who was trying to attack his son. Then he only had 1 bullet left, and so whenever he found himself in a situation where their safety was going to be compromised, and he didn't want his son to be raped and, eaten alive, essentially. If anybody caught that Walking Dead episode last night, it brought in another sort of grim reality to the cannibalistic side of things, is that, and they did it in The Road too, is that they want to keep you alive to keep the meat fresh. Sick, disgusting, I know. And obviously, that's a very far out scenario, which I don't think is unlikely. I can't see cannibalism happening until we are really far gone, and and only in a road-like situation where there was no other means of procuring food. That said, people have become quite lazy nowadays and quite not unskilled with respect to acquiring food from hunter-gatherer means or agricultural, egalitarian, agrarian means. So who knows? People might just be that stupid and resort to cannibalism. But anyways, getting off topic, back to the suicide thing. So, you may well be faced with a situation where either somebody is injured and they're too weak to carry on, and perhaps they're becoming a burden on the group. And I know it's very hard to ever think that somebody you might love would be a burden on you in any way, shape, or form. But you're going to have those super rational minded people who are going to insist that people get left behind, or that people be put out of their misery if push came to shove and they were badly injured or something like that. And I know a lot of people say, I'd never give up, but I mean, if it came down to, you may just be faced with that choice. Do you euthanize somebody, or do you do the altruistic suicide thing where you kill somebody you love so that they cannot be abused and, basically tortured to death by other people? And it's a toss-up, because you don't know if there might be a way out of that situation, or do you even want them to have to endure that at all, to be raped and beaten and then ultimately probably killed? That would ultimately be endgame, if not just totally scarred for life, and probably not very functional after that. So you may be faced with some hard decisions, what I'm trying to say. And are you ready for that? Are you ready for yourself having to put one in your own dome, so to speak? And I'm by no means condoning suicide. I'm by no means condoning euthanasia per se. I'm not, I don't want anybody to get any stupid ideas because of what I'm saying here. But we're just talking about theoretical, and I'm not saying anything absolutely, because I don't really know. I think, things for me personally would have to be pretty bad before I went down that road. But knowing human nature the way I do, it'd be hard to not entertain that thought if I was in a position where it was either risk having family or friends tortured and it was like a 99% sure thing that was going to happen, and hoping that 1% might prevail, that I might be able to heroically get them out of the situation, like Rick and his party from The Walking Dead always magically get out of these, dead-end situations. I just don't... I think that I might have a breaking point with that. And maybe it's good to always have a way out in that sense, What if you're captured and taken prisoner and you're tortured to give up information about your group? What will you do in that instance? It's when a cyanide pill might come in handy. Suicide pill. Because could you handle being tortured? How long could you be tortured? Having your eyes burnt with cigarettes, having your testicles cut off, or something crazy like that, like the most painful things that you can imagine having done to you. How far would you be willing to go before you broke? I mean, everybody's got a breaking point. Everybody's got a breaking point. Torture is a very gruesome thing, but it's a reality. And in a WROL situation without rule of law, or varied rule of law, you can bet that there's going to be a lot of people acting out their sadistic fantasies. And of course, we've all been so desensitized by so much violent programming over the years that every possible torture method a person could imagine has been demonstrated on television. Would you want your people to go through that? Could you take them out yourself if you had to do it? I mean, this is the last ditch reality. This is probably nothing we're going to see in our lifetime, hopefully. You'll never have to be in that situation, but it's purely theoretical, and hopefully it never happens, and just yet another post-apocalyptic rumination, which hopefully will never come to pass. But that's the real harsh reality of it all. Save a few bullets just in case. Put them behind some glass and right on there, in case of emergency, break glass. Because if there was no hope, and there's always hope, I'm a firm believer that even though it may be my Hollywood hero complex, I think there's always hope. I think that good can always prevail, even if there appears to be no hope. A saying I like is, when all hope is lost, you'll be dead. So if you're not dead, there's still hope. It might be, absolutely dismal amount of hope, but something to consider. And how far do you go? A lot of people of the Christian faith, your faith advises you that it's a sin to commit suicide. And I was brought up in a Roman Catholic school. I self-identify as an agnostic right now. If you don't know what an agnostic is, it's basically a thinking person who doesn't speak absolutely about anything, doesn't endorse nor necessarily take issue with religion per se as a whole, but I'm certainly not a part of any organized religion. But a lot of the Christian people, I know, being raised in the school, that it was ingrained into us that, if you commit suicide, you're going to hell. If you don't fight tooth and nail to live as long as you can, no matter what torture and abuse that you have to endure, you're going to hell. That's the whole Jesus, crucifixion thing, right? Testing your faith. I'm sure, after a certain point with the torture, you would go into some kind of shock and, you would kind of just leave your body. And I think a lot of rape victims and stuff like that say stuff like that they just, detach themselves from the reality of what's going on somehow. But would you still want to have somebody put through that or be put through that yourself? Personally, I'd rather go out in a blaze of glory, and would. But then again, you still have to think about the people you leave behind. You can go John Wayne and not give a shit, but then you still got to think about your kids, your family, and stuff like that. There's a lot of twisted, sick people out there who are just being like, held together, held in place by the system. The only reason why they're not offending is because of the system. They say that, I can't remember what the statistic is, but most pedophiles don't actually offend. Most psychopaths don't go around killing people because of that they fear the legal repercussions. But there's a lot of sick, twisted people out there. So be prepared to deal with that nasty part of human nature, because we're not that far from the Stone Age, really. A few thousand years. We're still animals. No matter how well we get cleaned up, at the end of the day, we're just biological organisms. We're just, and this is not to, like human beings, there's a lot of good in human beings, and I do think that good will prevail, but expect that you may have to make some really hard decisions like that. That's something that's not going to be easy. If you had to pull the trigger on yourself or a loved one to protect them. And I know that's seems like an oxymoron, but you know what I mean. So let me know what your thoughts on suicide and euthanasia are. And what about the old, the elderly who, what are you going to do with them? I mean, what about the people who no longer have their medications and the grid's not coming back? And, do you let them die a slow, grueling death, or do you quickly put them out of their misery? And like I said, I'm not saying what you should do. I'm just trying to create dialogue about this issue. Let me know what you think about this. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.